The Climate Wisdom Studio live from COP28 in Dubai, in UAE. We bring together experts from science, religion, spirituality and politics to explore new avenues for the unfolding climate disaster. Myself, I'm Golo Pilz. I'm the advisor on renewable energy and I will be the moderator for tonight's program. The climate talks in Dubai are entering into their final phase, but the governments are still seriously divided on the central question whether to phase out fossil fuels or not. Dan Jorgensen, Denmark's climate minister, who has been charged with forging an agreement, said, "We cannot negotiate with nature. The climate cannot be compromised. No well-meaning words change a single thing unless we act. This week may be our last chance to bring us on course to stay within 1.5 degrees of the Paris Agreement." So the talks are entering in a very crucial phase, and literally the future of humanity is at stake. The Climate Wisdom Studio will keep you posted on the further developments. I'm very glad to have tonight 3 distinguished speakers here at the studio. First of all, I would like to welcome Florence Colleoni. You are a paleo ice sheet and paleoclimate modeler. I hope I have pronounced that right.
Yes.
At the National Institute of Oceanography and Applied Geophysics in Trieste, in Italy, since 2018. You are also the current co-chief of the scientific research program Instabilities and Thresholds in Antarctica. And you have a PhD in modeling past glaciations. I think that's about ice glaciations.
Yes.
About glaciers. Good. Welcome to our live studio.
Thank you.
Then next to me sitting Priyanka Patil. She's the founder and director of Golden Era Eco Services in India. You are a regenerative gardener, a permaculture designer and teacher. And you are on a mission to heal people, landscape and planet with spiritual and nature-based principles. You hold a Master's of Science in Agriculture and you have participated in several training courses in permaculture, and this is your second COP. Welcome to our climate studio.
Thank you.
And we have with us in the middle Maureen Goodman. She's the program director for the Brahma Kumaris of the United Kingdom and also the representative at the UN in Vienna. She has been to several climate change conferences before, and she has a deep interest in the spiritual and ethical dimensions of this unfolding climate change. She has a long-term involvement in interreligious dialogue and represents the Brahma Kumaris on the board of religious leaders of the Elia Interfaith Institute and is a spiritual ambassador to the Living Peace Project. Welcome, Maureen, to our panel discussion.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So this brings me to my first question. Florence, what is a paleo ice sheet and paleoclimate modeler doing? And why are intact ice sheets at the poles so important for our climate?
So thank you for inviting me tonight. So a paleoclimate modeler or a paleo ice sheet modeler is effectively not that widespread in science. However, it's about trying to understand the past climate evolution and the past evolution of ice sheets by using observations or numerical model to really understand the interaction between different processes in the climate system in the past, very remotely, like million years ago, or more recently, even only a few millennia ago.
So you go to the North Pole and you drill into the ground and take the ice out and you look in the different layers?
Well, I'm not the one doing it, though. I would definitely like to do this experience once. No, I'm the one that talk to the one that just go collect the ice cores or the sediment cores and then use them in the numerical model with mathematics and physics to reconstruct the dynamics of the climate in the past. So it's a treasure hunt in the past, actually. So at the beginning, I really wanted to do that, to not step into future climate. But then now we are at the point where to understand better the future, even on the long term, you need also to understand how it was in the past. So everything is useful to understand better. And the polar areas actually have always been very sensitive in the past, and they will be also in the future for different reasons. But polar areas are white areas because they are glaciated, so they reflect most of the solar radiation that comes from space. And by doing so, they do not absorb any heat. That's why they are so cold, actually.
Is it the albedo effect?
Albedo effect, exactly this one. And also because the Earth is inclinated a bit. There are 4 months during the year with no sunlight radiation at all. So if you melt the ice at the poles, for example, because of this albedo effect, what remains below the ice is darker. So it will absorb the heat, and so will raise temperature further, then melt further, raise temperature again, and so on and so on. So it's a positive feedback. And in future warming climates, makes the ice melt more and more, faster and faster. So the polar areas are particularly sensitive because in the tropics you don't have any ice. So even if you warm the tropics, yes, you warm the tropics, but less faster than polar areas because you remove the ice.
Thank you very much for sharing with us about the melting ice. And I heard that the ice is melting very fast, and scientists say, at least in the Arctic, in summer, they soon will be ice-free.
Yeah, before the Arctic was completely sea ice covered during the summer, but now what remains during the summer is a little bit of ice. So the ocean is warming below.
So it's happening already.
Yeah, it's already happening, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for that input. We now all understand a bit better what you're doing. Priyanka, coming to you, you teach people to heal themselves and then heal the landscape. That's a very interesting approach. How is it working? And can you share a bit about your work in India?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing the space with me, firstly. Yes, for healing, we need to go inward and understand for regeneration. We were used to work with regeneration projects, and for regeneration, I believe it's needed education and well-being. So when we talk about well-being, it's not the well-being of landscape or property we design. It's the well-being of the people, well-being of the planet, and well-being of every single creature. So when we heal from inside, deep within inside, then only we can heal the landscape on which we are working. So currently we are working in the Rajasthan and in Gujarat, and it's like one of the driest place in the world. And there we are working with grassland restoration, and we have some people, they are the marginal farmers and belonging to pastures, and they don't have much source of livelihood and anything. So we work with them to create nutrition gardens, because when you used to see their plate is only having one grain, that is a wheat, and only one single vegetable, that is onion. They don't used to have any other vegetables. Sometimes they used to have potato. So we started by taking that one point, how we can design their plate, how we can diversify their plate to heal them, their bodies, and having nutritions. So we started designing the nutrition garden for each single family. And the water is the major scare element, and it leads to the migration. The village we started to work, it's very challenging, and the people, only 96 people are living in the village. They are mostly elders and the kids, and they are going through lots of difficulties. So this nutrition garden initiative, then community garden. Community garden started in America itself during World War I and II. We started this in India, where all communities come together and they start growing the saplings. And there are more than 50 diverse species, which can give them the food sovereignty and food security, and maybe it leads to food freedom. So this is the work we are doing with communities and many other areas like capacity building and providing them the livelihood opportunities so that they can sustain it and achieve the scale of permanence, which is essential to be as a resilience communities.
Thank you very much. I think this is very important because life depends on food, and food is produced by the farmers. Yes. If the farmer is not happy, the soil is not healthy, everything else will be disturbed. So I think you're doing a very commendable job there in India, especially I know Gujarat and Rajasthan, very dry areas. Sure. And climate change is making the situation not better for those farmers. Thanks very much for sharing. Maureen, coming to you, one of your expertises is in the building of a spiritual capacity for the coming transition. And it's written all over the walls that change is in the air. How to build that spiritual capacity, and how does it help the people to face climate change?
Thank you again. Thank you very much for having me on this panel. Spiritual capacity is about understanding the resources that I have to rely on internally when all the resources and props that I'm used to relying on externally seem to be moving away from me. And I think there's already a lot of people who are experiencing this. In many countries, in Europe, in America, here too, still there are a lot of comforts. But I remember the situation in the UK quite some years ago. There was a petrol strike and people couldn't get petrol. And people really panicked. And so everything seemed to depend on whether they could get petrol or not. So that's a classic example where I'm relying on something external, that goes wrong, and I don't know what to do. So building spiritual capacity actually is about building up my inner resilience, because actually we all have a lot of capacity inside. When we think about a spiritual perspective, we're then, of the human being, we're then not just looking at what they do, but we're also looking at what's within. And within, if we go deep within, we find that we have inner peace, we have love, we have wisdom. And if we can access those qualities and we can begin to use them, then we're much more able to face the situations that we're in. Because, when there's a trying situation, a difficult situation in relation to climate change, if there's certain resources I can't get externally, then I need to be able to adapt. Now, if I panic, if I lose my peace of mind, I won't be able to see the solutions that are in front of me. And so building up spiritual capacity is also about being able to take the right decisions at the right time and move in the right direction and to use the resources that I have well. So it's an inner and outer expression.
Wonderful, sharing with us how to build up spiritual capacity. Florence, you are here with us at the Cryosphere Pavilion. This is a bit of a tongue breaker, cryosphere, and probably not many people know what is the cryosphere. What is the cryosphere and what are you doing at the climate conference? What global action is required to keep the ice masses, Arctic, Antarctic, and maybe also the many glaciers around the world from melting any further, or is it already too late? Many people ask, will it happen now or somehow can we stop it? Please share your insights.
So the cryosphere is vast somehow. It includes, of course, ice sheets. So we have Greenland close to the polar cycle. We have Antarctica, the South Pole. Then we have all the glaciers, and we have all snow-covered area and permafrost. So it concerns a vast area in the Earth, both in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Actually.
Maybe 10% of the landmass?
No, a bit more, actually. Okay. Yeah. So it's really important actually because of this reflective capacity that we mentioned before, but also because of the cooling capacity. I mean, this is what regulates the temperature on Earth. I mean, if you don't have ice at the pole, it's definitely warmer everywhere. So cryosphere is not only about ice sheets and sea level rise or glacier meltings, it's also about permafrost and snow-covered areas. So it's really important, and also ultimately for also water resources for many people that relies on glaciers. So yeah, why is it so so now why is it so urgent to really preserve the cryosphere? So physically, for the reasons I mentioned before, because it regulates the climate on the entire planet. Okay, the heat is transported from the equator to the pole and from the pole to the equator. So without that, we won't have on coastal areas mitigated winters, for example, or dampened summers.
So what action do we need now to preserve them?
Yeah, we definitely need to preserve if we don't want to unbalance the climate that we have now, because climate change is about unbalancing the radiative distribution of the heat of the latitudes. So if we transfer too much heat to the atmosphere, then it has to be compensated for.
So how to stop that?
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So I mean, most of this heat is absorbed by the ocean. So if you want to keep the balance right now, you definitely need to decrease the amount of heat you put in the atmosphere, which is what we do by emitting with our human activities right now. So we have like much heat in excess compared to what the natural system would do. And if we would like to come back to a natural balance, we would need to retrieve 70 ppm of CO2 in the atmospheres.
We have to retrieve 70 ppm.
Yeah, that's a lot. This will bring us back to pre-industrial levels, which is the natural variability of the system.
Okay.
And so we definitely need to drastically mitigate our emission, because it's not an easy task to remove 70 ppm of CO2 in the atmosphere. And right now we are not doing enough and not fast enough. It's slowly taking off right now, but it's too slow. And what's going on in this COP is that we wanted to push this 1.5 degrees target to be preserved, because we know that below this target, most of the cryosphere is preserved. Most of it, not all of it. Okay, what is lost already or committed to be lost because of the heat already trapped in the system that continue to melt the cryosphere anyway. We can preserve most of it, not all of it.
So 1.5 is very, very important.
It's very important.
Yeah, from your viewpoint. Yeah. So let us see what the conference decided. A lot of debate is going on right now, and everybody says we have to stay within 1.5, but these are rather words at the moment, and the action is still a bit missing. Priyanka, this brings me to you. As per latest science, we are in for more droughts, heat waves and floods, and all the simulations, they say India is one of the countries which will be quite affected by climate change. What practical advice you have for the local communities, especially in terms of water management, watershed management, grassland and forest restoration?
Yes, actually the question itself addressed the forest. I think the best answer is to look towards the tree or think like a forest. So forest is always a diverse system which is having multiple layers. It's like a canopy layer, mid-canopy layer, shrubs and bushes and grasses and the vines over there. So today we are facing lots of challenges just because we don't have this diverse ecosystem. We are simply stuck with the monoculture mentality. This monoculture mentality leads to bring the violence to our plate. So it's not just war outside in the world somewhere, but the war started coming to our plate, and it's not in that intensity, but it always like a biomagnification. It's more intense, and it's like again start initiating that war inside us. So here my point is that when our soil absorbs more and more carbon material, it becomes like a sponge. Now our soil is dividing that element, which is a life-giving element, carbon. So whenever there is a rainfall, it's not infiltrate in the soil. It's just happening the runoff, and it's leading to the flash floods, and sometimes it's leading to drought because
So
there is
what to do? Building small dams, check dams, for example. I've seen many check dams in India.
Yes, but yes, check dams are the good initiatives. But when you see towards the nature have its own beautiful system. When we mimic those systems in our own landscape, it's very helpful. For example, 1,000 small structures are more beautiful than one big structure like a dam. So river is always having tributaries and smaller things. So here you can start with some boundary trenches, having plants. Plants are holding more water than anything else. So even we can add some biomass into the landscape which hold the water also. So these are the small techniques regarding the watershed management. And in India, we have biggest healing project led by Pani Foundation. It's one of the Earth's largest healing project in terms of watershed management. So we have number of examples, we have ancient wisdom, but we are losing it.
Thank you for sharing. I heard that yesterday or today you have been also visiting the mangrove plantation here, and I heard that's one of the initiatives of the local government to stabilize the coastline, and the mangroves are also a huge carbon sink.
Yes.
I heard then they're protecting, they become also a habitat and all this. So basically you empower nature and bring back nature. And as you mentioned also in India, there's a huge knowledge of the indigenous people, yes. Local traditions, a lot of wisdom, and maybe we only have to dig out that old wisdom and apply it properly, and then probably the resilience for local communities could be considerably improved. Thank you very much. Maureen, you are involved since many years in the interreligious dialogue in connection with climate change. More than 80% of the world population are connected to a religion also. This is quite a force actually. And I know here in the climate conference for the first time we have a faith pavilion. And you have had a program today also there, and two programs, and I think Ravi Shankar was also there.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've got quite some influx actually from India also, and this is quite a strength there. Can the religions? What's your feeling? Can the religions find a common ground now, slowly, make their voice heard, and finally have more impact into this whole process?
Definitely. I think the faith pavilion is a very big step, and it's really made the whole input of faith, the voice of faith, more visible and more audible. I was also privileged to be at the pre-COP Faith Leaders Summit that was held here in Abu Dhabi at the beginning of November, and this was the beginning of the whole push by the UAE government to bring forth the voice of faith. And what I've observed, there are lots of things that people of faiths disagree on at times, theologically, sometimes politically. Not that faith and politics shouldn't be together, but they are together in so many instances. But when it comes to climate, actually, I do see that everybody's moving in the same direction. And I think it's up to faith communities now to push governments more. Now, it can happen on two levels. One is from the ground level up, because this is what communities want. Communities want there to be more ethical decision-making. In terms of climate, when decisions are being made, deliberations are going on, it's so important to put people at the center of that, and the well-being of people, not the finance and the resources. And so that is what is required. And also from faith leadership. And it was very nice to meet in Abu Dhabi the Patriarch of Constantinople, who's known as the Green Patriarch. And he actually has a whole set of principles for climate change as part of the Elijah Interfaith Institute that you mentioned. Last year at Sharm el-Sheikh, they actually didn't come to Sharm el-Sheikh as a board of religious leaders, but they had an event in London. But we'd done pre-work together to bring together spiritual principles that can help the environment to flourish. And this was the product of people of a huge variety of faiths working together. So I do think that this is where faiths can find common ground, but the voice needs to get louder. So the push needs to come from the grassroots and the push needs to come from the leaders.
Thanks very much for sharing. I think also the Pope has somehow become green. He published the Laudatio Si, and recently there was another one, encyclica,
Laudato Deum, I think,
and which he again emphasized. And I think he was supposed to come, but then his health was not good, and he had to cancel the visit. Yeah.
But you know, there was a declaration from the Faith Summit, and I was just looking at the signatures today. We all signed. But the Pope's signature is there as well, even though he wasn't present, and one of the Muslim leaders. So
thanks very much for sharing, and let's hope that the Faith Pavilion will have more impact.
Yes.
And our leaders understand that the well-being of humans should be at the core of all deliberations and negotiations. You know, it should not be about money or business, should be about well-being of the people. Then I think the solution is very easy if you put that as a priority.
And actually, the solutions are there.
Of course.
But you see, again, if you look from the spiritual, ethical perspective, where greed has taken over, it's impossible to apply the solutions.
So it's also a lack of values and ethics. And
Exactly.
if we strengthen that, and religions can do that, it's actually their job to strengthen the religious foundations, then actions will be right.
That's it.
Thanks very much for sharing. Florence, what gives you hope? Can you share an inspiring story here from the COP? From meeting people, from seeing example, what gives you hope?
Well, mostly because I see different generation here. So it's really definitely an intergenerational problem. What I see in this COP, but also in the previous ones, is that the youngest generations, they already have assimilated climate change. For them, it's not a matter, they're not questioning it. They're already looking at the solution. So I think our generation are more the one that are behind, and slowing down the whole process. But for the young generation, the one that are at COPs attending, they're not really following the events about climate change, because for them it's already a matter of fact. So they're really going to resilience pavilion, faith pavilions, water resources. They're already beyond that. So for me, it's very optimistic. It means that they're already thinking about how to solve the problem.
Thanks very much for sharing. The young generation gives you hope. I hope also some of us elderly ones give you also hope. You know?
Of course.
I'm since 30 years in clean technology, so I'm also one of the good ones. Okay, thanks very much for sharing that story. Priyanka, now you are one of the youngsters, and you have attended last year's COI in Sharm el-Sheikh, and the COI is the UN Climate Conference for the Youth. She's our youngest here. And it's not easy for the youngsters to face climate change, as their future becomes blurry and also uncertain in a certain way. You know, it becomes not clear, you know, how the future will look like. Some think we don't have any more future, you know, that also we heard. So what keeps you happy and focused, and how you avoid the dreadful burnout, which seems to affect so many people who are dealing with climate change? So what keeps you happy and focused, and how you avoid the burnout?
It's again connection. Connection with communities, connection with nature. There are lots of inspiration from nature and connection with divine again. But yes, to being home for all the creatures, to being home for the souls, means for the people, like-minded people. And being home is like providing space, allowing yourself to face any uncertainty, to face this time of unrest and heal our wounds. And it helps us having community, as Florence mentioned, lots of youth, they are going towards the resilience pavilion. Even I saw lots of people, they are interested in food pavilion, health pavilion. They are creating lots of solutions and they have lots of inspiring stories. But when I listen them, then only I can apply them and I can share with my communities. Someone in the globe, they are having some inspiring stories and they are dealing with these challenges with very effectively, so that we can also do at our space.
I know that you are also meditating regular. Is that helping you also to keep happy and focused and avoid the burnout?
Yes, I always feel very, very small things makes me happy, like flowers. And I used to be very mindful with nature, and it gives me a lots of energy and to be very positive with whatever happening in the external environment, as I used to work with agriculture sector, and whatever the things are happening from last few years, there are lots of uncertainty. Sometimes there is lots of flood, sometimes there is no water at all. So to dealing with the farmers or to dealing with other team members, and there is no schedule for your work, and you have to be resonate yourself with the time scale of the nature. This is a big challenge, and here your inner power helps yourself to radiate your energy with your fellow colleagues and members, and even that radiate that energy to the nature. Be the best friend and be the home with nature also. I used to feel I have the marriage with ecosystem and every plant and the animal.
Wonderful. Sharing your source of strength. Wonderful. Maureen, coming to you, the latest reports from science are quite alarming, to be frankly. I mean, I read every day some newspapers and some summaries, and it's quite alarming. How to stay calm and peaceful in such turbulent times? Can meditation help to build up inner resilience and face the challenge?
Definitely. When we see things in such upheaval externally to us, then what do we have to rely on? The external is constantly changing. There's huge uncertainty. But what we have inside as spiritual beings is eternal and is unchanging. And this is where we find our stability. This is where we find our strength. And we need to go deep inside and practice this so that when those times are in front of us, instead of just our thoughts and our being connecting with what's happening, we go inside, we gain strength so that we understand what to do, and we also understand how to give strength to others. And I think within that, of course, as a person of faith, in meditation, to have a connection with God, with the divine, with the source of peace, the source of love that is unlimited. Because my own internal being, maybe there's a limit. If I connect with the unlimited, then I have a constant source to draw on. And it's very important at that time to create a calming atmosphere around me. And I can only do that if, as Priyanka says, you're emitting calming vibrations. And this is, of course, a benefit for you, but definitely of benefit for the people around you, and definitely of benefit for nature itself. And we always need to think, what am I giving? What am I sharing? What am I emanating? And for that, we need a lot of inner strength to share and to emanate that which is going to uplift, that which is going to heal, that which is going to create an atmosphere of calm.
Wonderful. How you share how meditation can help. I know that Brahma Kumaris is also operating a project called yogic farming.
Yes.
And Priyanka, you're probably a bit involved in that, where we teach farmers to meditate with the soil, with the seeds, with the land. And we have quite good results. It seems our positive thoughts, our positive mindset has a very practical effect into the soil quality, but also in the grow of the plants. And the yield is about 15 to 20% higher. And I think you worked with the university and confirmed the results. And now the latest what I heard is that you're identifying some prototype farms in India and where you apply and roll out yogic farming on a large scale. What a wonderful project. So our thoughts, our loving thoughts not heal ourselves, they heal also nature in a very practical way. Very lovely. Florence, coming to our last question. Please share in one word your good wish for this COP, how the COP can be successful. What is your good wish?
Well, I think I wish that we can listen and understand each other. I think it's very important. I think we are in a century, perhaps a decade, where we are not listening to each other, and so we cannot understand each other. I think that's what I wish for this COP, but also the others. It's important to me.
So listening, be receptive, be in silence sometimes and see what the other has to say. Wonderful. Very good thought for the success. Priyanka, what is your good wish for this COP to become successful?
When you listen deeply, it's the greatest kindness you have to share to inspire others.
Okay, so you also want to listen. So we have 2 listeners already. Very wonderful. Maureen, what is your good wish for the COP?
Well, the thought that comes to me immediately is wisdom. And if decisions can be taken with wisdom, then they're not just decisions for today and tomorrow, but they're with the long term in view and the future of humanity in view.
That's interestingly also the motto of our studio, Climate Wisdom Series.
Yes.
And indeed, wisdom will be very helpful if it's being applied. And as mentioned before, there's so much wisdom in the world, especially with indigenous communities. You know, I read that their carbon emissions are very, very small, and they somehow understand the natural cycles of nature. They live in peace, in harmony with nature, and also in peace with themselves, you know, and a lot to learn from them. And I hope that here also at COP, their voice will be heard more and more, and we can apply that deep wisdom. So let us listen, let us apply wisdom. And that brings me to Sister Maureen. Would it be possible you can guide a short meditation and take us beyond, take us to wisdom and take us in this stage of listen? Sister Maureen.
So I take a few moments to go inside. I move my thoughts away from the external, from the past, from the future, to be truly present with myself. And as I go inside, I realize there is an inner world. An inner world where there is peace. I go to the very heart of my being and I find peace. I am a being of peace. And in this state of peace, I can connect with the divine source of peace. the source of love, the source of wisdom. And I absorb the peace and the love and the wisdom into myself. I experience the healing power of divine love. And then I can listen clearly to the world, to humanity, to nature. And I hear the call for peace, the call for healing. And so I share that love with our world. So that the world can be renewed. Human hearts can again have hope. And together we can make our world flourish. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Maureen, for taking us in the space to listen the call of nature, but also listen to people. Listen to their wish for peace and harmony. And I think that's what the world needs right now. Peace within and then peace without. And this is one of the age-old traditions also in the spiritual traditions in India, that the mind is above matter. And when there will be peace within, there will be peace on the outside. How lovely, how apt for the current situation. I would like to thank to all our speakers, Priyanka, Maureen and Florence, for coming to our wisdom studio. And I hope all our viewers will be inspired by all the deep points being shared about sacred agriculture, about the importance of the ice sheet, and how spirituality and meditation can help to heal the self and heal the world. I like to mention and thanks also our patrons and sponsors, the Brahma Kumaris, the Kalptaru Tree Plantation, the Brahma Kumaris Environmental Initiative, Radio Madhuban, Yogis for Future and India Care Trust. Thanks very much to our sponsors. Thanks also to the Raja Yoga Center here in Dubai for hosting us and for all the helpers behind the camera who make this studio possible. Please do join us tomorrow for another panel discussion of our Care, Share and Inspire Wisdom Studio. For details, please visit our webpage www.echo.brahmakumaris.org. There you will find all informations for the next coming series. Last not least, thanks very much to you, our audience, for staying with us. Goodbye and good night from Dubai.